As America comes to grips with the killings of George Floyd and Rayshard Brooks by police, there's unrest across the land. Protesters are demanding racial justice and an end to police wrongdoing. The cops, sworn to serve and protect, are feeling under fire. Joining us now is Father Jayson Landeza, a chaplain to the Oakland, California Police Department and the pastor of a largely African-American parish. And Father, after George Floyd's death, you said, at this point, at this time, at this juncture, Black Lives Matter. How are you sharing that message with the officers you minister to?
First of all, Christine, thank you for having me here. It's difficult to do that because I think oftentimes folks in law enforcement, particularly these past few days, see and have always heard Black Lives Matter, meaning that their lives don't matter. And I think that there's a different narrative these days a bit. And I think that the officers out there are seeing the kind of reaction that folks from throughout the world are rendering towards law enforcement these days. So it invites them to take another pause and get a sense of reevaluating what is it about their profession that's causing folks to react as they're doing now.
Right, and the cops on the street have a difficult job. They're sometimes faced with making split-second life and death decisions. Is
Yes.
their work even harder now? Could they be reluctant to take action now?
I think so. I think they're now, with the advent of phone video and that type of thing, there's a real second thought about being able to respond in ways that could be seen or viewed as antagonistic.
Right. And many Black people say they don't trust the police. You know, years ago, kids often looked at cops and saw heroes. What are you telling the men and women in blue about rebuilding the relationship between them and civilians? And what's the morale like these days?
Oh, morale's terrible. I think the morale among law enforcement, they're relying really on each other to give the kind of support that they need in this real transitional time.
Right.
A lot of them, I think, are doing a lot of soul searching. Others are trying to look towards others within the law enforcement community for a sense of support during the midst of all of this.
What are they saying to you?
They're trying to find meaning in their work. There's a sense of, at least in Oakland, a lot of our officers have really have expressed having dedicated their lives to working within our community, which is largely a minority community, working within some of the toughest neighborhoods, feeling both angry and confused about the lives which they've given and the reaction in large part towards the brutality of some within the law enforcement community. Those who I've spoken with by far have said overwhelmingly that they are abhorrent of what happened, abhor what happened in Minneapolis. And it's a terrible reflection on law enforcement in general. But understand that there's a deeper need to look and do some soul searching also in the meantime.
Right. And in Minneapolis, a majority of the city council there wants to dismantle the police department. Here in New York, some politicians are calling for a big bite to be taken out of the NYPD's budget. Are these good ideas?
I think being able to have law enforcement respond to things like what we call in California 5150 mental health cases or homelessness, oftentimes that could be better suited to other resources. I think being able to direct some of those resources towards addressing some of those needs. Your officer doesn't need to be both social worker and a street psychologist at the same time. I mean, that could perhaps be redirected elsewhere. So when people talk about defunding police, I'm getting a sense that it means taking those kinds of responsibilities away from sworn officers and have them deal with crimes that are particular to what they're necessary for.
Right. And how do you counsel an officer who's been involved in a shooting while on duty?
Well, you listen. I mean, you get a sense and be not judgmental. They're listening and be supportive of them as a person. I mean, I think that that's the role I have as a law enforcement chaplain. I mean, my role there is to be supportive of that person in the midst of whatever struggle they're going through, in the midst of the shooting that had taken place.
All right, Father Jayson Landeza, chaplain for Oakland, California Police Department. Thanks so much for sharing that information with us.
Christine, thank you very much.
If you're watching Currents News on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and then click on the bell to get instant updates about all of our newest content, because we are putting your faith in the news.